what's happening? So now it's Congressman D'Esposito. You're starting it up. I mean, it's just been we just roll it. We just roll it here. So there's no big intros or anything like that. It's more about just getting the nuts and bolts of it.
There's no like climactic
No,
music?
there's no
Nothing?
climactic
All
music.
right.
We'll do all that with the editing
All right,
stuff
you
like
got
that.
it.
It's more of just in terms of your style. I really wanted just to hear more so just straight up your first few weeks now in Congress. You're down there, and it's like what does a congressman do from you going from councilman to congressman, and now at this point it's already started off with a bang.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, the first week, get down there. We had 2 weeks of orientation, so gives you the opportunities to sort of meet everyone and anyone from around the country. It's almost like it's a high speed dating. You meet a million people
Right.
from all over the country. I've said over the last few weeks, what's pretty cool about it is when you get to orientation, everyone has name tags on, but they don't distinguish whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat.
Oh, I like that.
Gives you the opportunity to walk into a room and have a conversation and get to know someone, and you're not looking at them like, I'm not going to ever talk to this person,
right.
Which shouldn't be anyway, but some people do walk into it like that. So it gives you the opportunity to meet people from all over the country, from different sides of the aisle, and you realize that, pretty much everyone's there for the same reasons. They may have different beliefs on how to get there, but everyone wants the best for America.
You really felt that? Like you
I think for the most part. I mean, listen, there are people there that I think, without saying names, are absolutely insane.
Right.
I think that there are people in their own way that, want to do good for the communities that they represent. And obviously every community is different, so you're going to represent that differently. But in the end, people are very nice, they're cordial. Some of the people who you would have expected to be, maybe combative and not very welcoming, were completely the opposite of that.
Super sweethearts.
Yeah. So we went through orientation. You got to understand, in a very quick way how things worked, where the office buildings are, getting in and around the Capitol building and the offices. It's an absolute maze. I mean, there are people
Right.
that say they've been there for 2.5 years and they still make wrong rights and lefts every once in a while. There's tunnels, there's underground trains, there's elevators in every which corner.
Right. Certain elevators that only you can take as
Yeah.
a congressman, but others can. And
Right.
and who can go where and those that can't access it. So so you have to do the infrastructure, the people, and then also the rules and procedure, right, of the House, of how it's conducted. Did you have any like a speed dating from a parliamentarian or?
They sit you down, they kind of go through it real quick. But I actually said recently, I think one of the things that could probably make you one of the most effective individuals on that floor is when you know the rules best. Like
Right.
It's something that I'm sure it's not always interesting to read, but it's definitely something that I want to try to tackle because I think it makes you be so much more effective in your job if you know how the rules and work and how, procedures of the floor.
Right, issuing amendments or calling a point of inquiry or debate style.
So many things that are involved there, and I think very often it just sort of goes on a routine and nobody really pays attention until what we saw develop over the last 2 weeks. I mean, I got to D.C. on I spent New Year's Eve there, but on the 3rd we were planning on this celebratory day, getting sworn in.
Yeah, what a shit show that was.
Complete disaster. And you get a real quick understanding of how rules change and how people utilize the rules. I have to say, it also, it gave us the opportunity, again, much like the orientation, but this in a very different way. We're sitting on the floor for what we thought, was going to be a very quick, raise your right hand, you're sworn into Congress, vote on our rules, and then go enjoy the day with your family and friends that are there to celebrate. And next thing you know, we're 5 days into it, 15 votes later for the Speaker of the House, and I'm sworn in at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and the only person left from the probably 50, 60 people that came was my brother.
Just you and your brother.
Me and my brother.
He's still sticking around.
It's the same two that started this, and it's the same two in the end. But
give him that shout out.
Exactly.
Nice job,
So, Timmy was the last man standing. But, nobody would have ever expected that. But what it did, at least for me, the way I saw it is Yes, is that floor divided? There's obviously that aisle and people sit on both sides of it, but it gave me the chance to meet people in my own party that I think there's relationships that were established over those first 5 days that probably would have taken me weeks, if not months, or maybe I would have never actually had the opportunity to sit down with a guy who, was a sheriff of his town, and we have similarities in that we both come from law enforcement, or, somebody from Florida who spent his life as a career firefighter, ran for mayor, and then became a member of Congress. Like, a lot of the walks of life that I've shared, I've got to see develop over those 4 or 5 days with people that, again, I may have taken weeks or months to actually sit down and have a conversation.
So in a way, those first 5 days, although in the public eye, looked like a catastrophe, for you as a congressman for your congressional district, it allowed you to really develop those relationships to become a productive member of Congress.
Yeah, and from people from all over the country, from
I would never have thought that. That's great.
A guy like Tom Cole, who's much older than me, and comes from definitely a different part of this country. He's the chair of the Rules Committee.
Oh, nice.
Sitting down next to a guy like that, I probably in my first couple of weeks wouldn't have sat down against, but you're sitting there for so long and sort of moving around and, getting fidgety, and you start talking.
What else is there to do?
Exactly.
You didn't have it where you had to attend to constituent services. You're not sworn in, work or anything like that. You're not sworn in. So you couldn't really get to voting on anything else because this is the first thing to do.
So I think it was, in that, yes, people were watching it saying, this is democracy. This is, what a mess. I think there was a lot of benefits to it. And it gave people, listen, the people that were there, at times I definitely disagreed with the way they handled some of the things that went on that week. But at the end of the day, it's what they believed in. And for me, I kept to what I said I was going to do, months before. And that was support Kevin McCarthy. And all 15 times my name was called, all 15 times I called out Kevin McCarthy. And I think if anything over those 15 votes was shown, it was shown that McCarthy, he's persistent, he's passionate, and, he's a leader. A lot of people would have folded during those 4 or 5 days and those 15 votes.
He was getting pressure to do that.
Yeah,
just that.
He sure was. And he stuck to it, and he stayed calm. To me, he's been an absolute gentleman.
Were you talking to the speaker during that time as well?
Absolutely, yeah. He was, especially, I think he's got a fondness for some of us freshmen from New York. Without a doubt, no one would have ever thought that the majority was running through blue New York, and we delivered. So we wouldn't have been dealing with us, screaming out McCarthy's name if it wasn't for New York.
That's true. Now you're sworn in. So now, what's the average day in the life for a freshman congressman from New York? What's people always wonder that, and they always ask me. They asked me when I was in the assembly. They're like, "What do you do?" So what are you doing now in D.C.?
So in D.C. at least, the day starts pretty early, depending on what time your first meeting is. I've been trying to make sure my first thing of the day is Orange Theory. There's one right down the block.
I'm doing Orange Theory too.
It's the best, right?
It is the best. Yeah. You don't think, you just go in there.
Exactly.
You just bang it out for an hour and just leave.
Exactly. It's the hour that I don't have to think. The only thing I have to worry about is splat points. So it's perfect. That's the start of the morning. Then I'll change, and I'll usually take a walk over to the Capitol from where I'm staying. And it depends. Some of the days you start off with meeting some perhaps lobbyists, meeting some, listen, obviously a big part of the job is fundraising. Yep. So there'll be breakfast, there'll be some sort of event to meet and greet some people. And then, listen, you know me, and you know the type of, politician and government official that I am. I'm hands-on. I like to know every aspect. I was always taught, if you're going to take on an office, you want to know how every aspect of it works, because when one link of that chain is broken or gone, you're going to need to be the one that comes and fills in that chain. So I try to learn every part of the job, what everybody does. I was super lucky, blessed, coming from the town of Hempstead, where we run a pretty big operation. It's almost a $500 million budget, tons of employees, 800,000 residents. I was able to bring some great talent from my old staff to my new staff. So that has been great, both in
easy segue.
Yeah, both in DC and on Long Island. I've been able to work with some of Lee Zeldin's staff. They've come over to my team, and they've been tremendous. Yeah, they know Long Island. They know Long Island politics.
And that must be cool for them from Suffolk now to Nassau, right? Like that's also a nice switch.
Yeah, and they all really saw what Nassau was all about over the last year during Lee's gubernatorial run. So it's been great. I think that my office is a step ahead of a lot of others in that you're establishing new relationships with people that you've never met before, and sometimes that's hard. But like my office in Garden City now is being run by the people who ran my office in the town of Hempstead, and the people that I represented, I very hands-on, always out in the community. I'm one of those guys from sun up to sundown. I think the most important thing to do is to be out in the community, to be, this morning before we got here, we did 2 grand openings. We went and met with one of the labor unions. It's all about being out there, and that's the only way you win elections as a Republican in Nassau County. I mean, let's be honest.
You gotta be part of the people.
My last election as a town of Hempstead councilman in 2021, I won with 70% of the vote. And that's not just Republican conservative.
Right.
Those are Democrats. Those are independents. And I knew going into this race, after the redistricting, it was a seat that Joe Biden won by 16.5 points. We won it by 4. It's the biggest swing in the United States of America. And, I don't take that for granted. I know that people from all walks of life, from all political parties, they cross the line to vote for me. And that's an honor, and that's something that you really need to, you need to make sure that those relationships maintain, and you need to show those people that took the risk to go across that line and go out of their party. You need to show that you're representing them, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's been something that's been key for you, is maintaining that integrity and honesty and dedication to your district, whether it be as a council or now in Congress, which is why I was so excited to get to chat with you about that. Now, with going back to a question though, throughout the day, you're doing meetings. Are you always on the floor every day?
No. So they set up the schedule usually the night before. And in the beginning of the week, you kind of have a brief idea of, listen, probably Wednesday we're going to be on the floor from 12 to 4.
Got it.
And then the rest of the day you're doing meetings. You're meeting with different caucuses. Now that our committees have been assigned, we'll be having committee meetings.
Right.
You're dealing with constituent work. I still, even last week, there was a couple of times where I had 20 minutes to kind of just, I probably could have just closed my eyes for 20 minutes and chilled out. And I said, you know what? When the phone rings, I want to answer.
Oh, that's cool.
People are like, yeah, and they're like, wait,
yeah,
and they're like, wait, who's this? This is me, and they like that, and that's what it should be.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just be this figment that people don't know and don't understand. And I've always said that. I say it over and over again. I'm sure people are tired of hearing it, but when I was a young cop in Brownsville, Brooklyn, in the 7-3 precinct, a veteran guy told me, when you drive these streets, you always have your windows down. Whether it's super cold, super hot, your windows are down so you could hear the streets, you could smell the streets. That's how you can protect this community the best. And I brought the same thing to politics and government. I always have those windows down, so to speak, and I have my boots on the ground. And I think, that's, people respect that. And, people, you've heard it, people criticize all the time, oh, photo op this. It's not a photo op. We went to a grand opening in Merrick today. Some guy put his entire life savings into opening up a store in Merrick. That's not a photo op. That's there to say thank you for investing in our community.
Yeah.
This could be, besides his kids and his family, this could be, one of the most important days of his life. Why wouldn't the people
celebrate it
that are representing the communities want to celebrate it? So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think that's the essence of being a public servant, right? It's being there for those to help lift them up and making their lives easier and grow and supporting them throughout any endeavor they choose, whatever facet of life they wish to embark on. I think it's just so interesting too, with now you got the committees finally assigned after all this, and you're on the Homeland Security
and Transportation and Infrastructure.
Right. So what's some of your priorities with those committees? Do you have any ideas that you want to go down or issues you want to work on specifically in those committees or outside of those committees?
I think, Transportation and Infrastructure covers so much, and it's huge. It's just everything and probably anything that you could think of
encompasses
there's
that.
some sort of transportation infrastructure component to it. So I think for Long Island and for Nassau County, it is something that we always need improvement. Our infrastructure is constantly, being utilized, and it always needs upgrades. So for us, this is the ability to bring funding, whether it is, mass transit. I say all the time, down in the southwest corner of the district, we still have a lot of rail lines that are, on the ground. And for communities that are developing, where we have that smart growth, we have, developments where we're trying to keep our youth in our community so they're not moving elsewhere. Unfortunately, that brings extra cars. It brings extra traffic. We've seen many of the transit-oriented developments that were put in place prior to COVID. There's a lot, they're not really utilizing the mass transit anymore. They're utilizing their cars, and it's causing traffic problems. I think we have at least the opportunity to look at our rail system down in that neck of the woods, and at the very least do some sort of comprehensive study to say maybe it's time we raise these rails and make them equal to the main line that cuts through Rockwell Center and places like Wantagh,
Right.
Seaford, so we can
alleviate
the traffic. I mean, this is people's quality of life. So stuff like that, I definitely want to look into. I want to look at Hurricane Sandy. I mean, we talk about all the time in emergency management. Right, I've spent my entire adult life in the emergency management world. And one of the things you always ask yourself as an emergency manager is, are we better off today than we were in the last emergency?
Right.
Whether it is a fire, whether it is a flood, whether it's any sort of disaster, a pandemic. Are we better off today than we were the last time we dealt with this? And I mean, we saw on, December 23rd, right before Christmas, when we had a storm come through the south end of Nassau County, we're not better off 10 years later than we were at Hurricane Sandy. And I don't mean just mitigation-wise, I mean preparation-wise as well. So I think we need to focus on, strengthening our shorelines and making sure that our drainage is done the right way, and we start alleviating these concerns that is literally crippling people's lives. I mean, their businesses aren't able to operate because they're dealing with flooding that happens pretty regularly. So that old question is, are we better off today than we were? I think that is a perfect question for someone in transportation and infrastructure, and it gives us the opportunity in so many ways to provide funding here in these communities. Homeland Security. Listen, my background, how passionate I am about law enforcement, about first responders, about our border, about strengthening our southern border and keeping us safe. The issue that we're dealing with opioids. I mean, I've spent the last
opioids is a huge
five or 6 years in the town of Hempstead leading the charge in the opioid epidemic. Conducting classes, teaching about Narcan. And I did those classes myself.
Right.
Made sure I was out there teaching people how to save lives. We were able to distribute over 11,000 of those kits. All of that stuff is, has been made worse because of our open borders. And, the vice president can say whatever she wants. Our border is secure. The president, made what I call a campaign stop at the southern border a couple weeks ago. I mean, he gets to the southern border and everything. You do comparison photos of, 3 days before to when he got there. It was look like,
night and day.
Night and day.
Yeah.
So if you're going to want to see what we're dealing with at the border, you got to go there and really see what we're dealing with at the border. I mean, I was down there in late August, early September. And I tell you, it affects every industry. Every industry along that border, it affects, whether it's the schools, whether it's the local businesses, whether it's the sheriffs, whether it's the justice system. Everything is overburdened because of the failed policy.
Well, you're seeing that with the city now, right? They're panicking because the migrant busing that's occurring, where they have to now shelter them, housing, benefits, healthcare, etc. And that's seeing that just over there in the city, but now on the island. I mean, I think from your personal experiences and what you're seeing and witnessing, and then now bringing the federal level, is this something that is the media just hyping it up, or is this something that's really affecting? You're even seeing it in the district for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I met with the regional director of the Nassau County School, the Long Island School Boards, a couple days ago, and one of the issues that they're facing right now is the influx of these individuals into our school system, and it's happening so fast and at such a regular pace that it is altering the budgets that the school districts are putting in place because they don't have the funding.
Because it's not predictable. They predicted the X amount of students. Now they have an influx of students, and now we have to.
Yeah, you figure
alter.
when they do the budget, they give or take a handful of students.
Correct.
You know, each way. People move into town, people move out of town. They're dealing with, in some cases, dozens and dozens of people coming into the school district, and they don't have it in the budget. So they're proposing some sort of funding where they actually get it per pupil as they come into the school district, because it's the only way, especially some of these small school districts, that can survive.
Wow, that's insane. That's gonna be so. Is there willingness though because now Republicans have the House? So is there willingness from the Senate? Anything that could be where there's a middle ground compromise? Will McCarthy meet with Schumer to talk about maybe we could find something? Is Biden even willing?
I think if we've seen anything over the last 2 weeks, we saw that Kevin McCarthy is stellar at compromise, right? So I think that he has the ability to meet with leadership in the Senate and in the White House to get things done. And I think we all agree that the border is an issue. How we tackle it, I think, is where our differences come. But when you have places like New York City and you have the mayor who, if you were to rewind 2 years ago, he praised New York City for being a sanctuary. And now he's wondering, now what do I do?
Now rubber meets the road. Here we go.
Exactly. So I think that, him visiting the southern border was smart on his behalf, but I think he needs to become more vocal in calling out the members of his party that have leadership roles in this country and say, listen, this is an issue. And if we don't deal with this, it's affecting, again, the industries that it's affected along the southern border. It is now affecting in New York City and communities.
And the issues in the city, can't that trickle over now or trickle into the island? Or is it already happening?
I would say it already has.
Right?
I mean, there's no way that it hasn't trickled onto the island. And I think that it trickles onto the island in many different ways. It trickles onto the island with people who no longer want to visit New York City, people who may be choosing not to send their children to schools in the city. I think that people who own real estate, people who work in the city, without a doubt, we have seen, like I just mentioned, children coming into our school districts, who knows, that could have started in the city and just came to Nassau, Suffolk County. So yes, the issues are without a doubt, it's a regional issue, and we are all going to deal with it. And I think what's most important is we are all bearing the burden financially of it.
And the key is also understanding not just these financial implications, but it's also the fentanyl itself that's crossing the issue that we're having here on Long Island from fentanyl overdoses is as a direct result of illegal fentanyl trafficking across the border. Is that correct? Or
am I
missing something here?
There is no doubt that there is fentanyl in our communities that's infiltrating our southern border. Our border needs to be secure. But I would argue that many of our ports need to be secured better, and that there's fentanyl and illegal narcotics coming in from many different ways. But without a doubt, we're seeing it, and
like, what are some of the ports that you're thinking?
I think there's many, many ports that, there is illegal narcotics coming in.
Gotcha.
And just from my history and my career in the NYPD, we saw drugs coming from every which angle. Obviously, the focus right now is the southern border, and there are a lot of seizures, and the Customs and Border Patrol agents are doing the best they can. But like I said, I was down there, and one of the things that was most important to me when I was down there was not just meeting with landowners and ranch owners and local business owners, but talking to my fellow cops and say, what's going on? You think the morale in New York City is bad? These men and women are, overworked, underpaid. They're disregarded. They are assaulted. It's the justice system. I've visited jails in communities where the median income is $30,000. These people are poor.
Yeah.
And their jails are overrun. They can't fit any more people. And it's not just you're not going into these jails and saying, oh yeah, like this is the height of the cartel. There are young women in these jails that are being used as drug mules. that are sitting in these jails, and because the justice system there is so behind, because they don't have the resources to get through all the cases. I mean, there are people that are sitting weeks, months, waiting. I mean, it's insane. They're building makeshift jails to put people in because they don't have any space. The sheriffs there don't have the workforce to handle it. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, see, this is some of the trials and tribulations you have to attend to now this upcoming year, seeing how House Republicans, are going to make a difference, right? I mean, that's going to be the key, is just showing where it's talk is cheap. Now let's actually show.
And listen, I just on the way here, I spoke to the new chairman of Homeland Security, Dr. Mark Green, and he has committed to every member of the Homeland Security Committee that we are going to be, which is something that, I like and I like to hear because I think it's the way I try to lead, is boots on the ground. He said, when we have seizures of large amounts of narcotics at the southern border, get ready, because keep a bag by your desk, because we're going there. We want to see exactly what's going on. We want to talk to the agents. We want to commend them. We want to.
It's no more hearsay. It's going to be right there. You're going to see it directly. I think that's going to be really epic for you to bring back, not only to DC, but then to your district, to show like all that effort and hard work that you're doing to really make that difference and impact for CD4. I think it's going to be awesome. I know you got a few more minutes. Just wanted to ask. I know everyone's hitting you on this. I know you're crazy. It's crazy. The Santos saga. It's nonstop. You're the adjacent district, and you're just. It's like such night and day with how you stand, what you're pushing for the people. And then now this like distraction that you have.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's my point. It's just like you're just focused on CD4 and going forward.
I'm focused on CD4, but I'm also focused. Listen, I mean, we're not here just to talk about government. We have to focus on politics too. And I think what's most important is that, that the entire Nassau County Republican Committee and our chairman have come out and said George Santos is not our guy. He came in 2020 from the Queens Republican Club committee. He ran when the district was very different. It had Westchester, it had parts of the Bronx, it had
Queens. 5 counties.
Exactly. In 2022, he ran again. I mean, people are very critical of the vetting process, but let's be honest. I mean, he went through 2 elections, and at no point did the DCCC decide to, bring out any of this, or they just didn't know about it. I'm not really sure. But I think what's important is that it's not our brand. It's not what we stand for. And we've come out and we've been very vocal about it. I think I was the first member of the New York delegation, or the first member of Congress, to call for his resignation. I've been very vocal about it. I have no problem speaking to Fox News, to CNN, to any news outlet. This is, walking down the steps of the Capitol building and looking back at that building it's an awesome feeling. And it's humbling. It's an
honor.
Anybody who says they don't tear up when they do it for the first time are full of shit. It just, it doesn't happen. So it's an awesome undertaking, and people sent you there because they trust you. And especially for me, I mean, this was a district that 25 years was in Democrat hands, and people said, you know what, we're giving this kid D'Esposito a shot to go do it. And to have somebody from from our neighboring district, I mean, that's what every conversation has become. We've gone from, let's focus on an economy that's strong. Let's focus on a nation that's safe. Let's focus on a government that's transparent and open to the people. Let's focus on our borders. Let's focus on law enforcement. Let's focus on repealing the SALT tax. Let's focus on policy. But instead, all we're talking about is what story has come out today about George Santos, about, the great volleyball player he was at Baruch, or, what he wore to a party in Brazil. Listen, I mean, we've been very clear, or I've been very clear. He needs to resign. He needs to step aside. The investigations that are going on need to continue in whatever way they need to. But he just doesn't have the ability to focus on being a member of Congress. And quite frankly, his selfishness is taking away from a lot of the good work that people are trying to do in this new Congress. Whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, every interview ends with, so what do you think about George Santos? Right. And honestly, the American people don't want to hear about it. Or maybe some of them do. But I think the point being is we have the opportunity to focus on moving America forward, to working in a bipartisan fashion to deliver, at least for me, for Nassau County, for Long Island. And every conversation, every time you're at an event, I was at the APAC event last week in D.C., it's the topic of conversation. Why? The Jewish people are hurt. Yeah. When you lie about being a member of the Jewish community, when you lie about that your grandparents escaped the Holocaust, when you lie about, think about this district. Think about how many Jewish neighbors live here. Think about how many first responders live in this district. Yeah. And we have him lying about that his mom was, in the South Tower on 9/11, and now things have been revealed that she wasn't even, in the state or the country. Yeah. You're focusing on things and you're lying about things that really matter to people. It's part of people's beings. When you're a first responder, you go to work every day willing to give your life to protect the community. He's mocking that. Right. These people who escaped the Holocaust, who have family members who died in the Holocaust, it's a part of their inner fabric. You're completely exploiting that. I mean, listen, you want to say on a paper, instead of getting a B, you got an A. All right, I don't think it's right, but I'll give you that one. I mean, completely making up your history and education. Never went to Baruch, never went to just NYU, never worked for Goldman Sachs, never worked. I mean, it just, the people, and people have been critical of me, Republicans too, and they say, well, Joe Biden lies. Granted, yeah, he did, he is a liar. He's made it, 40-year career of I guess, lying.
Right, but we hold the same standard to everybody.
Exactly. So my point being is the fact of the matter is that the people who voted in the 3rd Congressional District voted for somebody who is not representing them in Congress right now.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, ultimately just being true to yourself, being honest, open, and available to the people to be able to service them and make sure you deliver results. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. People elect you 2-year term, deliver results.
That's it. And the media has asked me recently, we've heard that elected officials like Bruce Blakeman are referring all calls from the 3rd District to yours. My answer is the same that it's always been. When I was a councilman, whether you called from Island Park or Inwood or Levittown or Garden City or Franklin Square, you're a town of Hempstead resident. Right. I tried to help you any way I could. It didn't matter where you lived. And it's the same thing now. Somebody calls my office and they need help. I'm not going to say, well, what block do you live on? Sorry, that's not the 4th Congressional District.
Yeah, you're not doing that.
You. It's not what I'm doing. It's not what I was elected to do. And it's one of the reasons why people have crossed party lines to put me in office, because I always answered the call. I've always been there to help. I've always had a team that follows up and tries to deliver.
I love it. Congressman, it's been a real pleasure to see you here. You've always been a great councilman. You're an even better congressman.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for being here, buddy.
Good luck with Senator D'Amato later.
Thanks, bud.